There she is. If you can hear by that sound, she runs. Welcome back to the shop. We got the engine on the cherry picker right now. And we're gonna get ready to stab this baby in there. And we ended up finishing the engine rebuild because we had some bad main bearings. So now that it's all buttoned up, the engine's back together, we are gonna get it installed in this car. Stay tuned. So I normally take the hoods off of these cars in order to get the engines in and out, but in this particular situation, we were trying to save a little bit of time. It can be done. Just got to be really careful not to touch the hood. Now I tried to install as many components on this engine as I had to, but it was a very tight squeeze. But I am very happy that I got the manifolds and the charger in all in one unit. So with a little bit of wiggling, I could get the motor mount bolts to pass through the chassis. Here I'm actually playing with the load leveler to bring it to the correct angle. And then I snuck under there and put the bolts on by hand. Now you can see where the nuts protrude through the frame, just giving them a little tighten. Got the engine in. We got to install the transmission, the clutch, belt housing, all that, and then throw the rest of the exhaust on there. So this engine has a ton of wiring that was repaired and vacuum leaks that were fixed. So I'm not going to show the full length video of being under the hood, but just know when this was done, we basically went over everything. Installing the roller bearing pilot bearing. Always put a little bit of grease on there just to make sure. It should have a good seal on the transmission side to prevent any excess grease from spilling in. Go ahead and slap the flywheel on. I'm gonna go ahead and hand tighten it just to seat the flywheel. But then I'm going to take the bolts out because I got to install some red Loctite. The flywheel bolts get torqued to 74 foot-pounds. Then we're going to go ahead and install the pressure plate. And the pressure plate gets torqued to 30 foot-pounds. You want to check with your clutch manufacturer as well. Aftermarket suppliers may require a different torque spec. So the clutch housing to engine has a torque spec. You definitely don't want to strip them out because that's a really horrible day. They get torqued to 37 foot-pounds if you want to be correct. Getting this transmission into the C4 is a little difficult because you have the shifter on the back, which you don't want to mess with. So bring the engine down as far as it'll go, and then just slowly work the front of the transmission input shaft, and you want to line it up into the pilot bearing. it's seated in the crank. You want to be really careful and make sure that that is actually going in and you're not damaging the bearing. These transmissions tend to make a lot of noise when they're sitting there with the clutch out in neutral. Little steps like this will help quieten it down a little bit. The transmission itself does make noise, but the pilot bearing and the throwout bearings can also rattle, so you definitely want to follow the greasing procedure for those. So then you're only left with one thing rattling. Try to line up your gaps and that'll give you an eyeball. It should go in by hand. So as you can see, it pushed in. The clutch itself is actually pushing the trans away from the bell housing. So I'm going to go ahead and start these finger tight. Then I'm going to take a bathroom break. We're going to hammer them home and we're going to torque. Transmission gets torqued to the clutch housing at 37 foot-pounds. Here's your tiny little drive shaft screws. I'm going to lock those in with some red Loctite. I really don't want those coming out. Might make a pain in the ass to get it out next time, but you can always add a little bit of heat. Use a pry bar to keep the drive shaft from rotating. And the drive shaft nuts get torqued to 164 inch-pounds. Alright, so didn't want to bore you with all the install stuff, but we got the engine back in this thing. You can kind of see there's our paintwork. Got everything tidied up. Got a new coolant sensor over there. Replaced a section of wire because where it comes really close to that exhaust manifold, it got a little extra crispy. So there's a temp sensor right there. Did a lot of tidying up with things, you know, making sure nothing's going to get burnt on us. Got our NOx sensors in, everything. So she should be ready to fire up. Changed out the transmission fluid. This is what a ZF 6-speed takes from GM. Synchro mesh. It's not the new stuff that's red. It's actually a golden color oil, so make sure you got the right one. There's our nice exhaust, got the drive shaft in, the C-beam and all that. As you can see, more of that nice exhaust all the way out to the tips. So she's back together. Let me lower this thing down and we'll get back at it. So here she goes, she's all back together. Engine's in, supercharger's in. We got all fresh fluids and everything. Power steering lines had to be lengthened because this hose was not fitting on there, right? It had actually some tension on there, so I wanted to get rid of that. So that's all nice and tidy. The belt was in good shape, so we were able to reuse that. Got new spark plugs in. We're using BREF plugs in this NGKs, so they're a step colder. 2 steps colder, I believe. Got fresh coolant in it. This thing ticked green, so that's what went back in it. Fixed a bunch of vacuum leaks, a bunch of electrical issues, but yeah, cross your fingers, should be ready to fire up. Even cleaned the air filter over there. Charging this thing since the beginning. So the first thing you want to do is just verify that you're getting oil pressure. If that's all good, then you're going to want to go around back to the engine, take a peek underneath, make sure we don't have any leaks going on. Looks pretty good, not a whole lot of smoke. It's building oil pressure as soon as we fired it up. That's the important thing. Don't hear any noises that shouldn't be making noise. Everything looks good. It's still cold. We can pop this cap off. Yeah, we're full. So, yeah. There she is, running for the first time in a long time. Back from retirement. It runs excellent. There's that Deltec coil pack set up. Let's take it for a spin. You want to vary the throttle from 50% all the way up to 75%, and then eventually, maybe after 5 or so miles, I would say you can creep up into the 100% load range. And JE recommends that the braking procedure can be done under 20 to 30 miles of street driving. In wide open throttle dyno testing, the rings are seated by the end of just a few runs. Just like that, she got. So that'll pretty much sum it up for today. If you enjoyed the video, definitely leave a like. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell notification if you want to be notified for any future videos. Let me know also if you guys enjoy these Gen 2 LT1s. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one.